Before we begin this powerful story of a sailor and former President Trump that will touch your heart, make sure to subscribe so you never miss stories that truly matter. President Donald Trump was on a visit to the Chesapeake Naval Base in Virginia, the nation's largest military facility. As his motorcade passed through the gates, rows of sailors stood at attention. Among them was Petty Officer Luke Harrison, a reserved 28-year-old with deep-set tired eyes and a salute that could impress any officer. Luke never imagined he'd see the president up close. But here he was, uniform pressed, shoes gleaming, nerves buzzing. The day carried a strange weight, a quiet intensity. In his breast pocket was a small photo he couldn't stop thinking about. Politics and speeches weren't on his mind, only a promise he had to keep. A commanding voice called out, "Attention," and the black SUV door opened. President Trump emerged, guarded closely by Secret Service. His demeanor was serious as he began greeting the sailors. When he reached Luke's row, time seemed to slow. Luke lifted his hand and gave the sharpest salute of his life. To his surprise, his eyes filled with tears. Trump stopped. "You okay, sailor?" he asked. Luke nodded, his throat tight. He managed to whisper quiet just for the president. Whatever he said, it made Trump pause. His confident expression faltered into something much more human. They locked eyes, and for a heartbeat, everything else faded away. The silence lingered. Trump, clearly affected, seemed unsure how to respond. Officers nearby shifted uneasily, not sure if they'd witnessed something out of line or something deeply personal. A single tear slid down Luke's face. Trump cleared his throat. "Come with me," he said. Luke followed, stunned. They were quickly escorted into a private room just off the main hangar. Secret Service formed a barrier around them, blocking out cameras and reporters. Inside, Trump's tone softened. "What did you say out there?" Luke hesitated. "Sir, my dad told me that if I ever met you, I had to salute you for him. He never got the chance." Trump's features changed. "What happened to your father?" Luke reached into his pocket and handed him the photo, a smiling man in uniform. "He died in 2005, a Navy vet. Cancer took him. But even in his last days, he still believed in you." Trump was silent. For the first time, it wasn't about politics, it was two men, connected through a story of loss and legacy. "He was proud of you," Trump said, looking at the photo. "He was tough," Luke said quietly. "We didn't agree on everything. But he loved this country, and he believed in you even when others didn't." Trump looked moved. He carefully placed the photo on the table. "You honored him in a way most people never could." Outside, the ceremony continued. But in that room, Luke's father's memory was louder than any speech. A Secret Service agent peeked in. "Sir, the press is asking about the delay." "Give me 10 more minutes," Trump replied. Luke stood taller. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "Sir, you didn't," Trump said. "You reminded me. This isn't about speeches. It's about men like your father and sons like you." Luke exhaled. The weight on his chest eased. "Tell me more about him." Trump said. "He taught me everything," Luke replied. "How to swim, shoot, salute, but more than that, he taught me to stand for something, even if I stood alone." Trump nodded. "A man worth remembering. I hope I made him proud." "You did," Trump said firmly, without a doubt. Luke felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Outside, the band stalled with extra songs. Reporters whispered. Inside, Trump held the photo in silence. Then he stood. "Come with me." Luke followed as they walked back to the hangar stage. Cameras clicked as Trump approached the podium. He held a speech in hand, but after a glance, he set it aside. "I was supposed to speak about operations and budgets," he began. "But I met someone today who reminded me why any of this matters." He motioned to Luke. Petty Officer Luke Harrison carries a promise made to his father, a Navy commander who believed in this country and left his son with one final mission: deliver a salute. Decades in the making. Luke stood frozen as gasps rippled through the audience. Trump continued. "Sometimes a whisper carries more than 1,000 words. And today, I heard one." The crowd was moved. Some sailors stood taller, others wiped their eyes. "Commander, Nathan Harrison may be gone, but his legacy lives through his son, and that's what patriotism is, passing on honor and duty." An admiral nearby removed his cap and placed it over his heart. Trump looked at Luke. "Your father would be proud, son. You carry more than his name. You carry his spirit." Applause built slowly, then roared through the hangar. Luke trembled. He didn't feel like a hero, but, in that moment, he became the symbol of what service and promise truly mean. His mind wandered to the last time he saw his dad frail in a hospital bed. "Promise me, Luke," his father had whispered. "Serve with honor, and if you ever meet Trump, salute him. He understands sacrifice." "I promise," Luke had said, holding his hand. Now, that promise had been fulfilled. After the speech, Trump led Luke to a ceremonial room filled with historical medals. He opened a drawer and pulled out a velvet box. "This isn't standard protocol," Trump said. "It's personal." Inside was a custom medal, an engraved replica of a commander's Medal of Honor. It read, "For legacy and loyalty, Luke's voice cracked. Sir, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. Because sometimes, a simple salute holds more meaning than 1,000 medals. Thank you, Luke whispered, for honoring him. Thank you, Trump replied, for reminding me why I serve. That night, back in his barracks, Luke placed the medal beside his father's photo and folded flag. His roommates stared. Dude, you were just on every channel. I didn't mean to be, Luke replied. I just kept a promise. He finally slept soundly for the first time since his father's death. The next day, Luke found an envelope in his locker. His mother's handwriting. Inside was a letter and a photo of Commander Harrison. I saw you on the news, Luke. Your father would have cried, just like you. He always said you'd wear that uniform with more honor than he ever did. At the bottom, she had scribbled, P.S. He once turned down a promotion to stay with us. He always wondered if that made him less of a patriot. Luke whispered, No, Mom, it made him more of one. Later that week, Admiral Gaines, a friend of his father, arrived on base. I served with your dad in Bahrain. He saved my life once. Luke was stunned. He never told me. He wouldn't. He talked about values, not medals. Gaines handed Luke a leather notebook. This was his journal. It's yours now. That night, Luke opened the journal. The first page read, Deployment, May 2004. If anything happens to me, tell Luke. Being his dad was my highest rank. Page after page, detailed missions, struggles, but also messages to his son. Courage isn't loud. It's choosing right when no one sees. Love your country, but love your people more. And if you meet President Trump, tell him why I believed, because leaders forget. Remind him. Luke wiped his eyes. He had done exactly that. He picked up his pen. Dear Mr. President, thank you for listening. Most wouldn't have, but you did. This wasn't about politics, it was about promises. And now that it's fulfilled, I feel like my father's finally home. He mailed the letter to the White House. A week later, Luke read a final journal entry. If I don't make it, ask Trump something for me. Why men like me are remembered only after we're gone. Luke froze. His father had feared being forgotten, that his service would fade. That salute wasn't just for closure. It was for every silent hero who served without fame. And Luke had become their voice. 3 days later, a call came. This is the White House. Please hold for the president. Trump came on the line. Luke, I read your letter and your father's journal. He paused. Your father was right. We remember too late. I want to change that. What do you mean, Saram? Starting something. A memorial for unsung heroes. And your father's name will be the first. Luke choked up. He'd be honored. No, Trump said. The honor's mine. At the next press briefing, Trump stood holding the journal. We celebrate bravery, but forget quiet heroes. Today, I'm announcing the silent salute, memorial to honor those who served without recognition. The first name etched Commander Nathan Harrison. Luke watched the announcement with tears. His father's voice now echoed across the nation. Months later, Luke stood beside Trump in front of a black marble wall. As the plaque was unveiled, Trump said, he wasn't a celebrity, he didn't seek fame, but he served. And because his son whispered the truth, we'll never forget him. Luke saluted, tears flowing, not just for a promise, but for every legacy that lives quietly in the shadows. Afterward, messages poured in from veterans and families. One read, my son felt invisible after losing his dad. Your story gave him pride. Thank you. Luke responded to each one. He hadn't tried to start a movement, but he had. Maybe that was his father's final gift. A year later, Luke spoke at a military graduation. He held up the journal and medal. Legacy isn't about being remembered by the world, he said. It's about being remembered by one person and living worthy of that memory. As he stepped off the stage, a young woman in uniform approached. My dad served with yours. He spoke of him often. Luke smiled. Then we share a legacy. She saluted. Luke held back tears. Years later, now a decorated officer, Luke sat near the memorial. A boy approached, hand in his father's. Are you the sailor who whispered to the president? I am. What did you say? Luke smiled. Something for someone. I loved something that changed more than I ever imagined. The boy leaned in. Can I whisper? Too. Luke nodded. The boy whispered. Tell your dad thank you. Luke looked at the wall. A tear fell. Did you hear that, Dad? He whispered. They remember.